talk about sex. Because lately, it seems that sex and sexuality are being talked about more than ever. And I, for one, think that that is a good thing. Whether folks are talking about how the Netflix series Sex Education comes at a time when so many schools are still grappling with how sex education should be taught in the classroom, or how a new survey finds that single people are seeking more of an emotional connection than just a good time, or even how the cultural hysteria and misogyny of the infamous 2004 Super Bowl wardrobe malfunction, y'all remember that, essentially erased the beauty and confidence that were cornerstones of Janet Jackson's unapologetically sexy persona. And that's what really matters here. Talking about sex should not be taboo. We shouldn't ignore it, and we shouldn't feel shame about it. Sex-positive discussion should promote a safer, healthier, and a more just society. And that is why I am so excited to have sexologist Michelle Hope here with us for this conversation. She is joining me tonight and is the program director for SIECUS Sex Ed for Social Change. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on. And let's just jump right into our chat and tell us, how can we have sex-positive conversations in a much healthier way?
Well, I think it's really important for us to remember that sexuality is a part of the human experience, and it's really important for us to focus on the fact that we all have experienced sex and sexuality. What I always say, from the womb to the tomb, baby, it's a part of our everyday life, and it's what makes us human, right? Like, let's talk about it. And I think that as parents, as stakeholders, as teachers, as anybody who cares about young people, we have to understand that sexuality and sexual education, or sex ed, comprehensive sex ed, is an important part of human development, youth development. And creating inclusive environments in schools requires us to invite sex education into the classroom. And
so I want to get more into sex education, but I want to touch on slut shaming for a moment, though, which is precisely what I thought about when I saw that Janet Jackson headline. Can you talk to us about the real world consequences behind this for women? And I think about it from a queer perspective for sure.
You and me both, because, honey, I'm here, I'm queer, get used to it, okay? And what we have to remember is that sometimes it's our own community that slut shames. We like to place judgment on people's behaviors, people's dress, how they express their sexuality. Sexuality is something that is normal, and really we should not be telling people what is right and what is wrong. When we slut shame, we create opportunities to marginalize other people's experiences, and we also create opportunities for danger, because we're telling people that their expression of sexuality is wrong, therefore they should be judged. So we have to be mindful of how we create environments that invite people to be their authentic selves. And so I'm a firm believer that we have to examine how we slut shame. We've all done it. I've done it in my own existence. I don't even want to act above my own critique, right? Because we all get it wrong sometimes. But I currently and have always strived to do better. So don't say, ooh, that skirt's too short, that, collar line is too low. There is none of that. Sexuality is a very human expression of being people. I hope that was helpful.
Oh, it's so, girl, we could just have like a whole show on just that. But I want to kind of, pivot for a second, because you also write about reproductive justice. You talk a lot about reproductive justice and how Black anti-abortion laws, like the one in Texas, are a danger to Black women. And then you pose an interesting question, saying, quote, while some on the right might say that individuals should be more responsible, I challenge that notion with the question, who is teaching us how to be more sexually responsible? What's holding us back from really addressing the idea of sexual responsibility? Because certainly conservatives don't want to talk about that.
Absolutely. It's the opposition, and it's the disinformation that's trying to conflate critical race theory, trans exclusion from schools, and an anti positive sex education idea from schools. Let's be very clear. The right wants us to believe that if we teach sex ed in schools, we're indoctrinating young people into ideologies that promote homosexuality or promote promiscuous behavior. That is absolutely not true. What we need to understand is that when we teach young people the facts about sexuality and inclusiveness when it comes to sexuality. And a part of being inclusive in sex education is understanding that critical race theory and the ideas that race and culture play a huge part in understanding our own sexuality. We provide opportunities for young people to make the best decisions about the healthiest outcomes for their lives, what is right for them. It does not mean that if we choose sex education, we are pushing them into promiscuity. That is a lie. That is what the right wants you to believe. What we are actually doing is we are giving them the tools and the knowledge that they need to make decisions about their lives, their pleasure, and their bodies that best fit them.
Yes.
And knowledge
But
is
that's just the
power.
thing, though, right? Is that conservatives don't really like education. They don't like the
Nope.
empowerment through knowledge so that you can make decisions about your lives. Like, that's the whole crux of it. I mean, you're drawing the analogy here with critical race theory, but with anything, right? It's interesting because this idea that teaching, educating, having information ultimately is pushing an agenda is so ridiculous, right? The whole thing is just completely foolish. The idea that like learning about your body, right? Teaching people about their own sexuality, the feelings that they have inside, even their own reproductive health, right? Just physiology and teaching about that is somehow pushing an agenda or promoting something. And I always wonder why conservatives have a problem with promoting knowledge, right? Promoting intellect, like promoting thoughtfulness. And that leads me to my next question. Researchers at Rutgers University have found teens and young adults aren't getting much of an education about sex in key topics compared to 25 years ago, which I thought was fascinating. Tell us, what is now missing from the curriculum?
I think inclusivity. I think that there is a regression in the idea that sexuality is expansive, identity is expansive, orientation is expansive, gender is expansive. And I think that we have gone to a point in which we're drawing these very clear and kind of inappropriate lines around what is right and what is wrong. And when we think about how we talk to young people just about anatomy, is crucial to, like, anatomy. Would you call an elbow any other name than an elbow? You would not. So therefore, we should not call our reproductive health organs, breasts, vulvas, penises, any other name but that. And I think people are
Yep.
afraid of that. I also think that we should kind of be mindful of the fact that, again, a lot of people are like, why should we be teaching this in schools? I'm a parent, parent's choice, right? Like, I am a parent. I want to be the one to teach this. Well, you didn't get the education when you were in school. So where are you pulling your knowledge
Nope.
from? We have to come together collectively and identify spaces that can give us information. I think Rutgers Answers.org, Futures of Sex Education is a great place to start. I think SIECUS, who has developed the National Sex Education Standards, is a great place to start for us to start really identifying what young people need to learn when, without judgment, without without politics. And I think that there is, the Healthy Youth Act of 2021, which is a bill that we're trying to get passed, I want to make it very clear for every parent that is watching. You can't just vote on a senator. You can't just vote on your House representative. You have to vote all the way down the ticket to your school board superintendent, because that is where
Yeah.
sex education is decided upon. So we have to become more active. I spent
All
all of
right.
this summer of 2021 or 2020
Great.
in these streets demonstrating, and I have done the demonstration, and it is now time for us to move to legislation, and that includes school board meetings. And we see the right showing up and showing out around
Uh-huh.
CRT, sex ed, and trans inclusivity. The left and all of us, we need to start showing up to those same school board meetings and saying, yes, this is what I want for my child.
Michelle,
And I don't have all the answers.
I love that you just gave us a new organizing principle that we need to go out there and pound the pavement and knock on those doors and get people animated to go vote so that we can make sure that we have proper, adequate, and inclusive sex ed. Awesome. I love it. Sexologist, educator, and activist Michelle Hope, thank you again for being here on Amplified, and we totally would love to talk to you again.